Alright guys, I'm going to try and explain this the best I can because I spent way too much time doing this. And I didn't really look around online to find a DIY or anything. I just kind of jumped in and went to do it, and I did it kind of wrong on one side. The second side, it took me like 10 minutes. So I'm going to go over this just a little bit so y'all can see. This is a C5 Corvette. It's actually a Z06, but all of them, lower and all of them, are the exact same. All right, so we're looking in the wheel well. This is for the front. It's not the same process for the back. This is only the front. So we're in the left front right now. You can see you got tie rod end, sway bar end link, shock, upper ball joint, spindle, lower shock mount, lower ball joint down there. And what I'm doing is lowering the car. And I wanted to go through a little how-to video on how to do it, so maybe it'll save you guys some time because I couldn't find any videos on this. So I did it the lazy man's way, and I read a couple people online did this, but I didn't really see any pictures, so I tried to do it the same way and just jumped in, and it didn't work out too well. So for the first one, the second one, the other side did perfectly fine. All right, so you're looking at that black piece right there that I have my light on. Let me see if I can point to it. That piece right there, that is the spring for the front. It's fiberglass. It goes from one control arm to the other control arm, and it sits in the base of the control arm. You can see the threads in the top. You would have factory, there's a bolt that goes through it, and you can see the bolt right there. They're cut right now, and I'm gonna explain how I did that. But this is the bushing, and that sits under the spring, and that kind of cushions the spring on the control arm. And then you have the bolt itself, which sticks up through the spring. And what you do is, see, it's got a little nut on the top, so you would spin it this way to bring the bushing closer to the fiberglass spring to lower the vehicle. To raise the vehicle, you would move the bushing further away from the spring. And what we're doing is I'm slamming the car as low as it'll go. So what we're doing is taking this spring and bushing, or this bushing and bolt all the way out, so that this fiberglass spring will rest flat on the control arm. And the way I did it was I supported the car good with jacks on the K-member, and I had you can see it on the other side, there's a jack right under each side that I'm working on. I would have the jack on the jacking plate, just in case something slipped or fell or whatever. The jack would hold the car up. Ideally, I would do this on my 2-post lift, but I've got something sitting in that bay right now. Okay, so so that goes over, supporting the vehicle. Then I take my second jack, which you can see right there, and I've got some wood to, what you're gonna do with that is roll it right up under here, right up under the car, put the jack under the spring, and I put the wood in between the fiberglass spring and the jack so that it didn't damage the spring. And you're gonna jack up on the spring, moving it up and away from the control arm. And once you do that, I took a long screwdriver. Let's see if I can find it. Actually, I took two. I took my real deal pry bars at my lake house, so I don't have it here. So I used this right here to go. Let's see if I can show you all how I did that. So imagine the jack under the spring, and then you're going to take this pry bar, stick it in between the control arm and the spring, and you're going to pry up on it. And what I did was I pried up on it enough that I could then come in from the back side with my regular screwdriver, my big regular screwdriver here, and kind of wedge this in so that it stayed up. Ideally, this is better for with two people, but most of the time I'm out here doing this shit by myself. So I kind of pried that large screwdriver in between the spring and the lower control arm. That way you get like a good gap, in between the spring and the control arm. You want to get it up as much as possible, so there's the biggest gap that you can get. And then what I did is I took this bad boy, this Sawzall, and with the Sawzall, I came in from the back side here. The spring at this point is pried up, so you don't have any hands on it. Or, you know, if you had a buddy prying from one side and then you come in the back side right here with the Sawzall under the fiberglass spring and over the lower control arm, and you cut the bolt right above the bushing. Got me? So you can see, you know, it's cut almost flat. So, you know, another thing to mention is you don't want this bushing sitting flat on the bottom of that fiberglass spring. You want it spaced down a little bit so that you can get your Sawzall in between this bushing and the fiberglass spring. That way you just slice it right through the middle, and this part right here just falls out onto the lower control arm, and then you take this, which is still seated in your spring, and you just back it out and take it out the top. Super easy, dude. I did the left side, and I misunderstood what was going on or how it worked. I cut the bolt on top of the spring and was gonna try and, you know, loosen this part right here was still attached, and so I was gonna, you know, cut the top and then just push it out the bottom and push this as one assembly out the bottom. Well, there's not enough room to do that. So what I had to do was push this down enough and then get in there with my Sawzall and cut it below the spring. So I spent probably an hour messing around with the driver's side, you know, doing it this way where I cut it wrong. But the passenger side, I just cut this bolt out in literally 5 minutes. I'm not good at cutting videos together, or I would have done it piece by piece and showed you exactly how I did it. But at least I wanted to go over it with you and explain kind of how to do it. So yeah, and then once I cut the bolt, you know, cut the bushing out and pulled the bolt out the top of the spring, I cleaned everything up, you know, sprayed it out with air because you're going to have some debris and stuff sitting in that lower control arm. And what I did was I took my grease gun and threw a little bit of all-purpose grease under the spring, so in between the spring and the control arm. That way there's literally nothing in between that except for that grease. I saw some people online talking about doing like a rubber floor mat or some piece of rubber, you know, very thin to keep it from moving around, but my last vet had nothing in between and I never had a problem. So with this one I just put a little bit of grease there just so there's something there, but we'll see how that works out. You know, I'll check back in, you know, after driving it a good bit. I'll check back in and, you know, let you guys know how the grease did. But yeah, that's it. So I literally did this in my, you know, driveway or whatever. I could have, if I did the driver's side correct the way I explained to you guys to do it, I could have had both sides of the front. I could have been done, jack, you know, everything start to finish in 30-45 minutes tops. But I've been out here for about maybe 2 hours or so. So kind of frustrating, but yeah, like I said, I just wanted to get this video out there so that you guys could see and hopefully, you know, save yourself some time. All right, appreciate it.